Many of us are fascinated by startups. For a lot of us, actually, this is the fuel for their dreams. And what makes startups so fascinating is a kind of a mixture of adventure, business adventure, revolution, changing the world with new ideas, but also the money that's invested there, right? So there are a lot of things coming together. When I was approached by a venture capital partner, I was already working for a startup, but it was a company internal startup. I was feeling like a department head instead of a startup leader. So I was looking for a challenge, not knowing that an internal startup is actually what I think today the perfect setting. So when that venture capital partner approached me, I got curious, and I started to discuss with him, and I started to interview, and then I went to the venture capital office and discussed with them, and after the first visit there, I really was thrilled. I just loved it. I thought, this is the opportunity of my life. I mean, really, we were not talking about just an idea. We were talking about a company that was the startup of the year just in the year before. It was valued around 30 million, and it has several financing rounds behind it. They had an initial product. There was a new product in the pipeline that should be ready as soon as I would start there. And I thought everything's just perfect. And there were also some very well-known former DAX CEOs as business angels invested. And everything looked perfect, really. So we negotiated, and then I signed the contract. And we discussed that for about the next 2 years, the company or the startup will be financed, and then we should live from the revenues of the new product that is in the pipeline, and with a horizon of about 4 to 5 years, it was planned to be sold. And I thought, great, perfect. I mean, that's really would fit into my life plan, and just everything was very positive. So I had about 8 months to go because I signed early and I had a notice period of 6 months, and I wanted to have some vacation before I start in that stressful job. I knew it's going to be stressful anyway. And since I prepared already because I was so excited, I had a very good start. I also had a very competent team, and we had an attractive office in a nice startup center where a lot of other startups were also located. So great surrounding, everything started very positive. And I loved what I was doing. I remember that in the first time I was easily working 60 hours per week. And that was a lot, but at the end of the week, I was not exhausted. I was just, getting more energy and more energetic every day. It was just great. I was the right person at the right time in the right job. And the investors were very happy. We were growing about 5% per month. We were reducing the costs in the first 6 months about 30%. We were not yet earning money. We were still needing cash flow, but everything was running in plan. The only thing that was not running in plan was the new product. Because it should have been ready when I entered the company. I was hired as a marketing and sales specialist, and my predecessor was basically focusing on research and development. And as it showed, he seemed to have left a little bit too early because the product was not ready. So what did I do? What do you do as marketing and sales specialists when you don't have a very attractive product? We did have a very good kind of prototype that we could sell. And we had about 2,500 patients that were using that product, and they were very happy. But the problem was with not having the new product, it was difficult to find new investors. So anyway, I didn't really bother about it. What did we do, by the way? We were active in the field of neurosurgical stimulation, neurostimulation for epileptic patients and for chronic migraine patients. So we had a product that was like this device with kind of a cable, and then at the ear we were stimulating the vagus nerve. The gold standard in that business is an implant that is implanted below the collarbone, and it connects with a cable with the same nerve here at the neck. And the idea of our startup was to replace that invasive surgery with a non-invasive stimulation through the skin. And the good thing was, we had clinical studies that proved that this is working. Now, with having these studies and having proven that it's worked, these large American corporations that were doing these implants got interested. And some of them were even so interested that they felt really threatened. If our system would be successful, they would run out of business. So they invested several million in our startup to be for sure part of it, but they also bought at the same time an option to buy that startup for about 100 million. And that was significant. So until then, everything really went very well. And by the way, this was also the business model of the venture capital company. They were investing in companies. They had about a little bit over 25 investments. All of these companies had the same kind of investment idea in the bag. They were only investing in companies that if they grow big, do they threaten another large corporation or not? That was the whole business idea behind it. And if they had that, they were putting a lot of money in the startups. And as soon as these large corporations realized what's going on there, they offered the startups for sale. And sometimes they were really very successful with that business model because I've experienced it, that they made 2 to about 5 times multiple of their own investment. Not for all of these 25, 26 companies, but for some. Now, our startup was on a good path, as I said. When the CFO approached me and told me we need cash financing, we'll have a cash out in about 2 months, and we need to start a financing round. And I trusted on the initial plan that said that we will be financed for about 2 years. So I called in a board meeting, and the investors were coming in, and I reported the successes we had. But I also very openly reported the challenges that we had with the new product. And I told them what my suggestions were, what we should do, and how much money we would need to realize that. And it was not more than planned. It was kind of, and I thought, okay, that probably would be no problem. But I was very surprised when they said, no, this time we're not going to invest. And I said, well, we clearly, at the beginning, discussed about that, and now you're not following the plan, so what is the point? And they said, well, it's your problem. You need to find new investors. The real problem, however, was we were about 5 weeks away from cash out, which meant at the end of next month, we would not be able to pay any wages. Now, to find proper financing in this short time is just almost impossible. So I went back, sat together with the team and discussed the situation and what we could do and how we could find short-term financing. But I also discussed with a lawyer what the consequences would be. And this lawyer told me, based on the numbers, I could have filed for bankruptcy already last week. But I would have to file in 3 weeks. Because if I don't file in 3 weeks, I'm automatically entering a state of bankruptcy delay. And we were a German limited GmbH, which meant when you enter the stage of bankruptcy delay, the complete liability of the company is on your shoulders as CEO, which means you pay the wages out of your own pocket. You pay the taxes, you pay the social security payments, everything. So I said, well, for me it became crystal clear, we're going to file for bankruptcy. However, the lawyer said, well, it's not so crystal clear, because if you file for bankruptcy, then the company will not get the testimony for going concern. And it's not worth the money that it was worth in the last financing round. It will only be worth the assets, which mainly were the patents. We had 64 patents. We patented everything around the ear because we knew that was the value. And the patents are not, don't have the value of 30 million. They have about 10 million. So for 20 million, you could be sued. I said, okay, it's just to get it right. If I file for bankruptcy, they could sue me for 20 million. If I don't file for bankruptcy, I automatically enter this bankruptcy delay status, and I could, need to be paid for everything, and finally could even go to jail, right? And he said, well, you got it. So that was shocking, I can tell you. I was feeling like somebody was, putting a gun on my head. I just saw no way out, because I did my best. We were quite successful. We made really progress. Everything was looking good. I totally believed on the plan that we thought is, happening. And I did my best. I didn't see any way out. Luckily, I got quite a good relationship with one of these business angels and told him my dilemma. And he organized that we got a bridge financing for about 3 months. So 3 months, that is not very long. And to be honest, since I was not really happy with the things are running, I was thinking, what would be the next steps? But the next steps for me clearly was to start with the next financing round, because that was important. However, just some weeks after that, we got the financing. The venture capital, which was the major investor, and they had over 50% of the company, so they were really able to make decisions. They gave me a board resolution. And a board resolution means that kind of the owner tells the managing director or the CEO what to do. And the board resolution was that they have decided in that stage, since we didn't have the new product ready, that they decided that we, sell the company now. And I should reduce the costs to maximum or to minimum, depends on the few, and especially that I should fire all employees to save costs. And before that, I was asked to do 3 scenarios, and I did my 3 scenarios. And the worst case scenarios was to let go about 20% of the people, but that was it, to keep on going with the sales and everything. If you don't have people anymore, well, in medical device, if you don't have a quality manager, you can't sell anymore. So I thought this is not the right decision, but that was the case, and I got this board resolution. And really, I didn't find the words to tell to my team. So I was calling the team in and was reading it to them. And they thought it's a joke. I thought it was kind of a 1st April gag or something. Because we had a good momentum. They felt we had a great company. They were very happy and positive. Some were even excited. And we had made great progress. And we were about 9 months away from break even. And in that moment, the investors pulled the plug. So they didn't understand that. I didn't either. But that was the case. So then I was working on this, next financing round. And for sure, after I had letting go the team and everyone, and I was the last person then in that company, I decided to quit too. Because the way it went, it was just not like it was discussed. And it's not that I avoid hard times, but if there's no trust, then it doesn't make sense. So boy, did I save money. Because I wanted to go from 5 months to 6 months, because that was my notice period to quit. And after the 5 months, I would have been still in that dilemma of bankruptcy or being sued. So I needed to go over the 6-month period. And what I did was, since I had to let go all the people anyway, and I had to save money, I even created income streams. I sold all the chairs, the tables, the cupboards, the monitors, the computers, the electronic device, everything. And that gave me to about 5.5 months. Then I reduced the office space from, to about 1/3. And I rented the other offices to the other startups that were growing, that needed it. They were very happy, and they were paying a good price. So I got income every month. And that was lifting me over the 6-month period. So then something happened, which was really interesting because everything changed. The venture capital partners realized that they need someone to sell the company that understands the patterns, that understands the technology, that can explain the clinical studies that were made, that has knowledge about the history, that can answer all the questions of potential investors, and so on. So they asked me if I would like to prolong my contracts. I was happy with the technology, I loved it, and I saw that a lot of patients were really relying on it. And so I thought, okay, let's do it. But do it much more smart. And I was in a good position. They wanted me to sell the company, and they needed me. I was literally the last man standing, right? So I negotiated quite a good contract and started to work on that. But I resigned as CEO, and I became the general manager for M&A. So I was going into about 40 companies that I was looking at. We made a long list on all these companies, and 12 were really interested. And I negotiated with about 3. But let me show you what the interest was and how that came out. So these 12 companies, they always ask kind of the same, well, that's not really good, the best. They always ask kind of the same question. And that was really, is the business, or is it possible to be digitized? Right? This is kind of material business, and this is digital. Let's draw a line here. We were kind of more on the material side because we had a kind of a hardware. It was kind of a classic medical device thing. So no, we were not digital, unfortunately. I always had to say. In the digital area, you see all the mHealth, the eHealth, all the apps that were coming up at that time. And the other dimension was, is it kind of an optimized business model? And initially, I didn't really understand what they mean with that. Optimized. Let me make an example, because maybe that's easier. An optimized business model is asking, do they really focus on the right parts of the value chain? For example, that Swedish furniture house, IKEA, they focus on the right part of the value chain because they make the design of the furniture, they are producing the furniture, they're packing the furniture, and they put it in their stores, and that's it. And the rest of the value chain is really done by the customer. The customer goes in the store, looks at the number and which shelf it is, goes to the shelf, gets it out of the shelves on the wagon, transports it to the cashier. Sometimes there in some IKEA stores, there's even no cashier anymore. You have to do it yourself, right? Then you bring it out to your car, put it into your car, drive it home. Completely logistics is done by the customer. Drives it home, brings it up to the third storage, whatever, builds it up, And studies show when you build it up yourself, you're reluctant to to call if there's something broken or something. You don't do that because you think you did it or whatever. So they're really low. And then they even, get rid of the waste. So that's all done by the customer. So that's an optimized business model. We didn't have that either. So we were kind of here. So how did I get in that direction to finally get in that area? Because that space is what really all investors are looking for. And very simple, that's kind of like the large startups like Uber or Facebook or Instagram, whatever. Let's say Facebook. It's completely digitized, that's for sure. But who is doing the work for Facebook? Who is loading up the pictures? Who is sharing? Who is liking? Who is, everything? Facebook employees? No, this is all doing the customer, right? So in that model, this is where they were looking for. And the way I got with my business into that corner was, there was an app coming up which was doing migraine like a migraine diary, because people that have migraine, they write down, what they did during the day, where they were, how much they traveled, what they ate. And you could do that on an app easily. And they had a freemium model, and you could integrate automatically, for example, weather dates, air pressure. You could integrate your travel activities. And then with a big data analytics, you could see what correlates with my migraine pain. And then at the end of the day, my migraine pain comes from flying with the airplane or something like that with 30%. So that's the biggest reason for migraine in my case. These kind of things. And they could integrate our neurostimulation in the app, and very easily. Right? So in that direction, the answer was found quite fast, actually. And in that direction, as I said, we had a product that was looking like this clicker. And the most expensive part on that device was the display. And since we could transfer already the stimulation on an app, you could transfer basically everything on a smartphone. And almost every customer has a smartphone, right? So the display costs, the battery, the CPU, everything could be just transferred on the smartphone. And we only needed the ear device, and that was it. That was about 60% cost savings. Well, did investors get interested in that? You better believe it. And that's finally how I sold that company. Now, would I recommend to you the startup adventure? Well, yes and no. It really depends on your stage in life. If you are, you just stopped or finished with your studies, or if you're a young professional or something, well, then go for it. There's a lot to win, and there's not much to lose for you, as you're not a CEO. Would I go again on the startup adventure? Also, yes and no. I had a great time at the beginning. I had a very steep learning curve. I experienced a lot of things I would never have experienced. But it could also have, gone really bad. And I really was looking in a deep ditch, and that I never want to, go close to even. So, however you decide, I wish you good luck and all the best with it. Thank you.